Hello. Once again, I'd like to say hello to the panelists. Member of Knesset Iman Khatib Yassiv from Ra'am, Member of Knesset Merav Ben Ari, the former chair of the Homeland Security Committee from Yesh Atid, Isawi Frej, Minister for Regional Cooperation, Isawi Frej, Attorney Nadava Etzni from Israel Hayom newspaper, formerly from the Ma'ariv newspaper. Well, actually, we have a very interesting question here. That's the question of the panel. This is what we're asking here. Israeli citizenship, Palestinian identity. Can the two go together? And each side, on both sides, they think they have such a good and simple answer to this. So the only thing I'd like to request before we start talking is perhaps we can try and understand each other a little bit, try to listen to the other and not to try run over each other with our opinions. Let's start with some affirmative action, and let's start with the Palestinian side, the Arab side. A very simple question. Iman Khatib Yassin, how do you define yourself? I define myself. Yes, perhaps if you could speak up. Of course, my national identity is a Palestinian identity. By definition, I'm an Israeli Arab woman, Palestinian, and a citizen of the State of Israel. So that's your category. Minister Isawi Frej, how do you define yourself? My nationality is Arab and my citizenship is Israeli. And where did the Palestinian disappear? A Palestinian is not a nationality, just like Israeli isn't. There is your civilian, your citizen nationality. Look, you need to focus. Myself and every Jewish citizen in this state, we have two identities, a citizenship identity and a national identity. We each have a different national identity. My national identity is an Arab who belongs to the Palestinian people, but my citizenship identity, I share it with all the citizens of this country, and it should form as the basis for the establishment of a shared society in this country. Well, I'd like to make things a bit harder for you. What's the difference between you and an Arab, a Moroccan Jew, a Moroccan Arab, a Syrian Arab? They have the different customs, different culture. The Arab nation is an entire nation. It's a nation more than a nationality. So you, within this nation, what kind of an Arab are you? Are you an Israeli Arab, a Palestinian? Look, you asked me a question and let me answer. Ladies and gentlemen, and we need to call a spade a spade. Our problem is not a problem of identities. People can define for themselves and choose for themselves whichever identity they want. The main issue is belonging. We have a home, we have a country called Israel, and people come with different identities into this home. And the question that people are posing to us is that of belonging. Do I belong to this home? Do I struggle within this home for equal rights or not? Okay, we'll get to that. I'm just asking on a basic level in order to conduct this discussion. We have two Israeli, Jewish, even Zionist participants in this panel, and they wish to understand who is sitting here across of them. And now, member of Knesset, Iman Khatib Yassin, she says, I'm a Palestinian, but also a citizen of the State of Israel. So you asked me, and I'm asking you, you're an Arab. What kind of an Arab are you? I am a citizen. My nationality is Arab. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. My nationality is Arab. My citizenship is Israeli, because being an Israeli is not a nationality. So that's where I'm at. I am struggling so that I will have full equality in my country, which is on a citizenship basis. Okay, so we got your answer. You're an Arab with an Israeli identity. My nationality. Okay, we'll get to the identity. I know that it's a bit complicated. Uh, Look, I answered. Listen, Muhammad. I am a person. I say what I see, what I think. The state of Israel is your country. It's your country. And Nadava Etzni is raising an eyebrow. What does it mean, your country? Look, that's very important. That's the most important question. The state of Israel is our country. It's everyone's country. The Palestinian Arabs are our nation, but my country is just as important. I need the people of my people here. Member of Knesset Merav Ben Ari, how are you doing? I'm fine. Have you recovered from the elections, their results? Yes, enough time has passed. Okay, enough time has passed. Have you started the panel? Yes, we can't hear anything. Oh, you can't hear anything? If you can hear, please raise your hand. Look, so many people can hear. You need headsets. You need earphones in order to hear. That's the concept. It took me a while to also grasp what this means, to fully understand this. All the people who've been here until now, they've heard you. Okay, great. So, when you see two different definitions here, Isawi Frej is saying, I'm an Israeli Arab. Iman Khatib Yassin is saying, I'm a Palestinian, but a citizen of the state of Israel. So, you as a citizen in the state of Israel. And I don't want to get into the definitions of Jews, how Jews define themselves. You have your own issue, but you're the majority. What issue? I'm a Jew. That's it. End of story. Period. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Are you more Israeli or more Jewish? Look, well, first of all, I'm a Jew. She wanted to get into this. It's not me. I'm a Jew, first and foremost, and period, because my grandfather of blessed memory, he was a good Jew, and he came, from Libya to the state of Israel back in the 1950s, because ultimately this is our country. And we aspire to come to Israel, to Zion for 2,000 years, and yet I'm also a Jew and Israeli. I don't think there's any contradiction or identity crisis. You said you have a lot of identities. No, we don't have a lot of identities. We're Jews, and that's it. When we live in this country, especially, there are Jews all over the world, but I don't have any dilemma here. Look why I'm asking you this. I know there's a discussion within the Jewish community. What am I more? More of a Jew, more of a Zionist, more of an Israeli? And there are other discussions, and amongst the Arabs, some even among the Jews, some say we are Arab Jews, some say we're Jewish Jews. But anyhow, when you see that we have two Knesset members, two representatives of the Arab community, and each of them describes or defines himself or herself differently, what does that say to you? Do you think this is an internal discussion that only pertains to the Arabs, or does it only also pertain to Jews in Israel? Look, first of all, as for Israeli Jews, there is no question. Let's set that aside. But as for what we saw here, and we saw this in the Knesset yesterday, we saw Mansour Abbas standing at the Tikva and respecting the Knesset, and Knesset members who walked out or who weren't there, who didn't want to be photographed with flags. By the way, there were Jews who didn't want their pictures taken with the flags. Yes, take issue with that, but we're talking about the Palestinians now. But yes, I definitely have a problem with what the Haredi Jews are doing. But what I'm saying here is very logical. You're in the Israeli Knesset. You promise to serve this Knesset, to serve your sector. These are the symbols of this country. I visited Abu Dhabi. I entered the mosque, so I put on a hijab. I put on the proper attire. I respected the place. When you're in the Knesset, and this is the House of Representatives of the State of Israel, then yes, I do expect Arab members of Knesset to respect the place, and part of this country are its symbols. Nobody expects you to sing the Tikva, because the words, being a longing Jewish soul, you cannot relate to that. See, you don't need to ask. I already answered that. But to stand there and be part of that parliament which represents all Israelis, yes, I think it's important. And the flag and the symbol of the state, these are the symbols of Israel, and I expect all Knesset members, Arabic, Haredi, and Haredi Knesset members, to respect the symbols of this country. You expect them to respect the symbols and the flag. But you can understand why they don't identify. Look, I've answered before you even asked the question. Our national anthem indeed talks about a Jewish soul that yearns, and I can tell you that when I was 17 years old in a summer camp in Greece, every morning we would sing the national anthem. Do you think I went aside and sat? No, I stood with my friends in that summer camp, and I'm saying something very simple. This country has certain symbols. We as Jews know how to respect wherever we go in Islam and Christianity, and why shouldn't this happen in the Knesset? Look, let me tell you what the difference is. When you were in Greece, I just gave it as an example. Okay, let's go along with your example. The Greeks did not build their country on your lands. The Greeks did not expel more than 500 villages and towns, and I'm not even mentioning a massacre like Kfar Qasim. So I'm saying there's a difference here. The difference is that there's baggage between the two sides. When Imam Khatib Yassin does not identify with the symbols, it's because of these issues. The symbol of this country is a Star of David, and I'm a hijab wearing Muslim. What do I have with that? And the flag, you expelled and deported my parents, my grandparents with this flag. So let's talk about the history of the Jewish people, because the 1948, those who started the war against the Jewish people, the Israeli people, and did not accept the ruling of the UN were the Arab countries. And with all due respect, we protected in order to reach an outline with the UN. Those who started the war both in 1948 and in 1967 and the war of attrition in the 1950s were, of course, the Arabs and not the Jews, who did want to accept the UN resolution. And let me say something else. The Jewish people, but the Zionist movement started here, and it was against the will of the Palestinians. Look, the Jewish people came to the state of Israel after having survived the Holocaust, came here to a Jewish national homeland, and instead of living in cooperation as they attempted to, they started an all-out war against them. And that's the truth with the Nakba and all these things. It goes against my entire Jewish identity. Look, does this cancel this thing that there was a Nakba here with the Palestinian citizens being expelled or deported? No, they started a war. There was no cooperation. We had pogroms. We had the events of a Tarpat. And look, so let me understand, most of you left under their own consent. So if in the recent May events, because you claim that the Arabs started a war, we could have simply deported them in Guardian of the Walls. Look, you know that that's not what I'm saying at all. Let me tell you something. After a year in the Homeland Security Committee, most Arab citizens of Lod, both Jews and Arabs, don't want to be woken at night from firearms. And most people don't want lynching of Jews or Arabs, and you know that. And I've been saying that for a year now. And we opened a police station when the Arabs don't want armed citizens to walk the streets. Yes, of course, because these firearms, first of all, harm Arab citizens, especially the innocent, the women and the children. I know that. When we open police stations at Lod, at the Rakevet neighborhood, is to make it accessible to the Arab population so that they can file complaints. But let me tell you about what you've just said today. We are in a country where Jews and Arabs live together, and we, as publicly elected officials, and unfortunately there was terrible incitement against the Arab population, but as publicly elected figures, it's our responsibility to reduce the flames against them, but to also maintain our principles as a Jewish and democratic country. Okay, so you know what? Let's make this our starting point, or let's pass it on to you. Attorney Nadava Etzni, member of Knesset Ben Ari, is saying we want to keep this country as a Jewish and democratic state. My question is, do you agree, first of all, that within this country, within the state of Israel, the way it defines itself, there is room for Arab citizens to say we are citizens of the state of Israel, but our national identity is Palestinian? Well, I'll get to that soon, but first of all, 3 comments regarding the rewriting of history. First of all, the Zionist movement is based on the word Zion. The state of Israel came out of the word or the name Israel. Israel, that's the other name Jacob had in the Bible. Jews have been here throughout history, and the Jewish people have returned to their land. That is the perception of the Jewish people. That is the perception of the State of Israel. And the State of Israel, by definition, just as it was recognized from the days of the Balfour Declaration, and then the resolution of the League of Nations, and then the resolution of the UN. Definitely from the perspective of the Jewish people, this is their country. But hold on, I'll answer you. Don't worry, don't worry. I won't embellish things, but we're talking about people who lived in their country, on their land. So what you're saying is I cancel everything that existed here before. No, but I'll get to that. Okay, please go ahead. Since the beginning of Zionism, since the first Aliyah back in the 1880s, the Arab population that lived here in this section of Syria or Turkey or under the British mandate. Look, but you are excluding an entire pop community from history when you're talking about the rewriting of history. I'd like to refer you to the wording of the League of Nations, and you'll see that they weren't talking about a Palestinian nation, and actually it doesn't even interest me because I don't care. That's something else. You can say it doesn't interest you, that you don't care, but you cannot rule out or cancel the existence of an entire nation because you don't care. Okay, but please be patient and let me develop my idea because I'm just in my introductory comments, and then you'll see that I am answering your questions. Number two, all over the world, and I'm just referring to what you said earlier, expulsion, deportation, we're not, or whether they escaped, we're not going to get into this argument. Now, it's always a question all over the world when there's one community trying to eradicate the other one. Those who win deport the other side. It happened everywhere. In Greece and Turkey, the Americans, they deported the Mexicans from all the places they conquered from them, etc., etc. 12 million Germans who lived for centuries in certain parts of Eastern Europe were deported in 1945 into Germany. That's not what we did. Now for your question, I cannot accept this comparison. Look, but that's what I'm saying. This is my position. And yet, the State of Israel was established and within the boundaries of the Green Line, not on all over the State of Israel, but within the Green Line. The Israeli Arabs who can define themselves whichever way they see fit. The Arabs who live here, and I don't care how they define themselves. All I care. So when Iman Khatib Yassin says, let me just make my two concluding comments, and then you can ask. Look, I don't care if a person wishes to define himself as a Palestinian, an Arab, an Israeli Arab. I care about one thing only, and that is for that person to respect the rules of the game of the State of Israel. The rules of the game of the State of Israel are that this is a Zionist country, the country of the Jewish people, which respects the minority within it and gives them equal civil rights as individuals, not as a people, as a nationality. Okay, so what you're actually saying, please, if I'm allowed to translate this to the ear of the Arab world or the Palestinian world, you're saying this is the country that we, the Jews, established. It's actually a Jewish country. It's also a democratic country. In democracies all over the world, every citizen, doesn't matter who he is, what they look like, what their color is, what their definition is, must be equal. So what you're saying now is that Nadava Etzni is not equal to Muhammad Majadla. You have all the aspirations in the world, including national aspirations, but myself and Iman Yassin and the other Knesset member, the Arab Knesset member who's here, Isawi Fridge, don't have the right to have such aspirations. Look, this is the State of Israel that was established for the return of the Jews to their national homeland and in order to rectify the persecutions and historic uprooting. But I'm not talking about history, I'm talking about the present. But you asked me a question, so I'm answering. Therefore, the answer is that on the private level. You know, if a person, and I'm talking about duties, not just about rights on the individual level, each individual needs to have equal rights, including in national governmental tenders and positions, and even elections to the Knesset if they obey the rules of the game. That can be discussed. But if the Jewish community has some kind of a preference that is manifest in the law of return, or if we're talking about national planning with respect to the establishment of towns and villages on the individual level, it's important for me, and I insist that the Arabs have personal equality. So what you're saying, in other words, is that this country sanctifies the supremacy of Jews over Arabs. Look, the expression shouldn't be sanctified. I as a Jew is a class A citizen, and as an Arab, you're a class B citizen. You should never dream or think that you can have any national aspirations. Why would you? Why would you have national aspirations if this is the national homeland of the Jewish people? You're saying this in a very harsh way, Muhammad, but essentially I agree. In essence, I agree. In essence, the state of Israel, as it's been defined in resolutions and in the Declaration of Independence, and even before that, starting with the Balfour Declaration and the League of Nations. But that's the discussion, member of Knesset Ben Ari. But this is the national homeland of the Jewish people, and it needs to make sure that the minority has equal rights. Yes, why do we need to apologize for that? I'm not asking you to apologize. I mean, you can apologize for that. You can accept it. And you know, my grandfather who came from North Africa, they took everything he had and he came here. Let me just say one sentence. One sentence, and I don't want to sanctify the supremacy in the panel. I'd like to go back to the other side. You know, let's start with you or with him. Okay, whatever you decide. He wants to hear us as well. Member of Knesset Iman Khatib Yassin. Nadava Etzni is saying, this is a country that's for the Jews. It was established for the Jews. You can do everything you want here, but do not ask to be fully equal. You don't have the right to be equal, but don't distort what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Yes. So first of all, in the tone that I heard, it was so patronizing, like the master who gets to decide and everybody else has to obey. This is what you said. This is what it implies. And this is quite often, regretfully, what happens actually in the field. If we're talking about equality, equality is equality, equality for all. And I'd like to go back to the previous part with respect to whether these two identities can go together. If we keep going back to 1948, then we will never agree. Each side will remain adamant in their positions. At least I'm talking about myself. And no doubt there was a Nakba here. There was a nation, and everything that existed. From what you're saying, it's as if all that didn't exist or shouldn't have existed, and today there's a different reality. So if we're talking about today, about the present, 2022, when 20% of the citizens of the State of Israel are Arabs, then they also deserve rights as a collective, and you shouldn't say only individual rights. I'm not satisfied with individual rights only. I ran for the Knesset not just as a woman, an individual, but as somebody representing a nation, a community which I want to represent collectively. So to say that only as individuals, what do you mean by collective? Does that mean that you don't want this to be the State of Israel, that this shouldn't be a Zionist country? If that's the case, then we have a clash. Look, I've said from the beginning that we have a country here that includes 20% Arab citizens, and we cannot ignore the 20%. And not only that, let me say something to you, Meirav, because I'm one of those who walked out, and I cannot act any other way, because there's a great difference between visiting Dubai and putting on a hijab, or going to Greece and standing as a guest of honor who stands when they're paying their respect to their national anthem. But if I am at a place and I consider myself to be a citizen in this country, and there's not one symbol in the anthem, in the flag, that appeals to me, that relates to me, that's about me, but this is the national homeland of the Jewish people. Why the argument? Do you serve in the army like I do? Did you lose almost 10 friends because we served in the army? You want equal rights, then you need to have equal duties. I don't understand that. I am justifying. You have equal duties. You keep talking about equal rights. What about duties? What about duties? You want to recruit the Arabs to the military. As far as I care, they can do national service and military service. What's the problem? If you can't serve in the military, why not volunteer at Magen David Adom, the police? An Arab Knesset member says to Muslim police officers to put down their arms. What is that? But you didn't denounce that. You can do civil service, not national service. We've taken out the word national. We never said that we don't want to serve. We can only do it. Look, member of Knesset, let me manage this. When everybody talks, then we can talk. Okay. I would like to say something very important about civil service. If it's civil, the civilian, then it should be part of a civilian ministry, for example, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Welfare, and let people do their service properly and not tie that up with the Ministry of Defense. I passed the National Service Law. It later changed the name to the Civil Service Law, and that's fine. I was there. I increased the quotas for the entire civilian population. We've opened up civil service to every 18-year-old young man and woman. I went to the firefighting brigade and I met young Druze and young Muslim women who said, we want to contribute, and I insisted on making sure that those who finished civil service receive the same rights as somebody who finished military service. Yes, because I'm in favor of partnering and I'm not against coexistence. On the contrary, I'm for it, and I fought to make it part of a civilian ministry where in the 20th Knesset, and it's still related there. And the mere comparison, no. But because, and please listen to me, on this issue, I'm all in favor. I'm in favor for those who finish their military service like a soldier will receive the same rights. You shouldn't be against me on this. Why compare this? Why compare this to military service? You're not listening. I am listening and I do understand, but I refuse to accept this comparison. I don't want it to be parallel to military service, only parallel in the rights you receive when you finish the service. We're both talking about the same thing. You're both talking about the same thing, and I have no argument here, but let's allow me to pass on to the Minister Isawi Frej. Minister Isawi Frej, you're sitting here quietly and politely as you always do. So you hear this discussion. What do you think? Because you've just said I'm an Israeli Arab. Forget about all the hoopla around this. It doesn't matter. I don't want to get into how Palestinian I am or how Arab I am. So you're hearing this argument. Aren't you part of this discussion? Ever since I've entered politics decades ago, this discussion has repeated itself, and it takes away all of our energies, and it just doesn't allow us to progress one step forward and see reality in the future of our children. So what are you suggesting? I said that our problem is not identities. Each and every person can define himself or herself whichever way they want. Religious, Israeli, gay, Israeli, Arab, Israeli. People can define themselves whichever way they want. There's a home, and we need to protect that home and fight to make sure that we're all equal in this house. I was invited here to discuss as part of the Israel Social Cohesion Week, and this is all I am thinking about when I look at the future I'm looking at the future. The past is good, but the future is what awaits us. Please allow me to finish. I have a lot to say. I'll give you all the time in the world. Let me just ask you a question to understand. Let me just understand. You're saying, let's forget about the baggage of the past. Let's focus on the future. But the real question is, in essence, perhaps what needs to be done is to reach this historic compromise that you accept the existence of the state of Israel and the Jews accept you as a Palestinian with equal rights, and then to progress and not the other way around, and not to agree to a situation where you have Jewish supremacy and the Arabs as being beneath them. You're trying to put words into my mouth. It's a terrible method of journalists. Please let me say, don't use things that are words that are not my words and try to trick me. It's very important. It's a very wrong method. You know, shut up. You know that I'm against supremacy, and you've already tried using this method 2 or 3 times in the past. I'm just asking a question. You can answer yes, and don't put words into my mouth. It's not what I did. And let me complete my answer. He interrupted me. Come on, Muhammad. Look, I'm asking you to respect this panel. You need to respect me. You're not being respectful. You're putting words into my mouth. Words I didn't say. To accept Jewish supremacy. It's not what I said. It's not what I said. I guess you didn't understand me correctly, so let me reformulate the question. Just asking. Look, Minister Fred, the easiest thing is to try and not. You are being unfair. You're unfair. You're trying to pull me in a certain direction in order to gain a headline, and that's a terrible thing. You've asked me, let me answer. Let him finish. He doesn't want me to. Please calm down. Yeah, I'm calm down. Please calm down. I'm calm down. I just know your method. I'm asking you a question, so please answer. So, look, and it's a shame that you interrupted me. You are saying as if I said that I accept super. Are we back to that? I asked you a question. Please answer. I don't like your method. Look, let me. Now you're being disrespectful. No, you're being disrespectful. Let me. Do not interrupt me. Whatever happens. You said, look, forget about it. You said that I accept Jewish supremacy. It's not what I said. No, that's not correct. That's not the case. My position is crystal clear when I say let's look at the future and strengthen the present. We're talking about social cohesion. Israel is your country, her country, and my country. The Palestinian Arab people are my people, but it's my country and I'm committed to it. And for that end, I expect all Israelis to be equal in this country. I want status. I want belonging. I am part of a national minority in my own country, and my country must accept me. Please let me finish. Do not interrupt me when I say things that you don't like. Then you interrupt me. So I'm part of a national minority in my country, just like I'm in Meretz, and I accept the definition that Israel is the nation of the Jewish people and all its citizens. Because okay, so we have a question here. But it's not a speech. You said something, and I'd like to ask. You said I accept the Jewish people, the Israel as the national homeland for the Jewish people and for all its citizens. So there's a contradiction. May I ask? Can't you see that there's a contradiction here between the fact that this is the state of the Jewish people, but also a country for all its citizens? No contradiction. I wholeheartedly believe that because of the Jewish history and the Holocaust and everything they've been through, we have the law of return. Guy Damak or anyone else can come to Israel, but But once he comes here, he becomes equal to everybody else. No supremacy, no privileges that one community or one citizen gets over another. That's how I see it. That's my belief. Okay, Muhammad, not Moshe, who was deported from here in 48, who lived next to you in the triangle or wherever. Look, there's a difference. Does he live inside the country or in the Palestinian Authority? He left here in 1948. He was expelled. Where did he go to? Gaza. Gaza? Okay. Yes, I have cousins who live in Gaza, the Majadla family. They were deported in 1948. Are they allowed to, just like Moshe is allowed to, return to this country and become citizens? Look, fine, I also have representatives who are refugees. My grandma is from Jaffa and her family is in Jordan, so I also have refugees. What needs to be done with them then? Look, I'm a simple person. I'm saying we need to reach a two-state solution, a two-state agreement based on the partition suggestion from November 29, 1947. And this place will include both nations, Jews and Arabs. And we need to find a wording that both countries will agree on for this entire issue. It's as simple as that. Okay, thank you, Member of Knesset Ben Ari. The refugee from Gaza will move to the future Palestinian state and not to the Jewish state. Among other things, that's one of the solutions. You can ask Arabs in Jat and Kfar Qasim if they want to move to that future Palestinian country. I'm not sure that they want to. They don't need to go anywhere. I'm just asking if you ask them whether they want to, not that they have to move there. Okay, let me ask you a question. What do you think about this statement? He's saying this is the nation state of the Jewish people, but it can also be a country of all its citizens. No contradiction in your view? No, we won't have a country of all its citizens here. This is a Jewish democratic state. What's my status? I want a status. I am part of a national minority. I want a status just like you beautifully defined. And you said that what's my status then as an Israeli in Israel who deserves equal rights? I don't understand. I want to have a country that I belong to. Just as you are a Jew and your nationality is Israeli, but it's okay. I did not rule you out from being a part of this country. I heard you well. I heard you well. He said, I'm a minority, a national minority within the Jewish country. The state of Israel is not a country of all its citizens, okay? It's a Jewish democratic country that will act for full equality. And I think, in health, education, welfare, yes, in anything. I have news for you. That's not a democracy. It's not, well, I have news for you. Look, democracy, by definition, that's a definition all over the world. Democracy means equality. Okay, you can have full equality. Do you have full equality in duties? Look, Merav, democracy, you need to cancel the nation state law. Not at all. In democracy, there is no room for it. We'll get to that. Let me say one thing for the removal of doubt. Every citizen deserves rights, definitely, by definition. And it doesn't matter wherever you're at, that this is the national homeland or the nation state of the Jewish people who dreamt about it for 2,000 years. When my grandfather in Libya took his suitcase, nobody gave him rights over his home, and I haven't even started talking about the Holocaust. It doesn't contradict Merav. It's my country as well, and I'm a member of a different nation. So we need to have both equal rights and duties. So far, all you're talking about is equal rights, and you don't really care about the duties. Please allow me another lesson in democracy. In democracy, you don't link rights to duties. That's how it is. You're welcome to study, civics. Oh, yeah, you have only rights, no duties. I'd like to ask you a simple question. You can ask, but I'll answer whatever I want. But I want to comment on what Minister Isawi Frej said. It's very important what he said. He says this is a Jewish country, a country of the Jewish people, but it's also a country of all its citizens. Do you see contradiction there or not? In this panel and probably in the audience, we are a minority, definitely, versus the moderator, the two of us, yes, versus the moderator who is presenting a unilateral or one-sided policies, because that's what you're thinking. I still like you. But even the moderator in Israel is allowed to have an opinion. Yes, if I'll moderate a panel, yes, I'll also have positions. I understand that these are your positions, but I understand that I want to start with something positive, and you've witnessed that because we sat together at the TV show Meet the Press. A lot of times I thought that the phenomena of the head of your party, I'm not mistaken, Mansour Abbas, right, that over the past year and a half, especially as a leader of an Arab country party, he has changed the paradigm, and he said we recognize the rules of the game, the fact that this is a Jewish and Zionist country. We do not wish to change the rules of the game. We just want to receive our equal place as citizens. And I thought, and I still think, and I hope I'm not mistaken, because I don't think that what the members of his party said are exactly compatible with what he says. Yes, not everybody's in uniform agreement in Ram. Okay, fine. But so let him put some order there. That was just a joke. Don't be offended. You know, everybody has the right to say, but I'm saying this in a positive way. I thought, and I still think, that this position of Mansour Abbas is a revolution. No less than that. Of course, that these positions of Arab citizens exist to a great extent. Also, what we heard from a member of Knesset, Frej, these existed in the past, but as a leading Arab party that says we are sick and tired of the argument and beating our head against the wall, and the fact that for so many decades we've seen these Arab parties being formed, and they identify with Yasser Arafat and the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, but they do not act for the best or interest or the benefit of the Arab community. And I think that the rules of the game, this is a very important recipe for the Israeli society to be able to attempt to pose many of the questions of the past, or to set these questions aside and to reach equality and integration. I'll just finish. I'll let you finish. But regarding this point, this is our headline. So Minister Frej is sitting here. He's saying, I accept this. This is the country of the Jews, or a country of all its citizens. And yet, he also meets with Abu Mazen, and he also is active for the Palestinian cause. Why do you see a contradiction between these two activities he's engaged in? Okay, it's good that you're saying this, because I'll get to the second part of the Western in Israel, land of Israel, and then we'll later talk about Jordan, which is part of the Balfour Declaration and the resolution of the League of Nations, etc., etc. But we're not going to go back to that. But you're constantly taking us back there. And look, and that's exactly where I'm trying to go. I would like to say that if we can, and you know, the more than 5 mandates that Ram received, I think it's because of that. Because I think that people who have heard Mansour Abbas saying this for a year and a half and now voted for him, I see this as an encouraging sign. And I think that if the Israeli Arab community, and they can define themselves whichever way they want, but if they accept the rules of the game, that the state of Israel is the state of Israel the way it's defined by its Jewish majority, but will strive for receiving individual rights and improve their situation with respect to infrastructure, crime, new towns and villages, etc., and will try to also assume some of the duties. I think that that's And I'm not getting into this. It doesn't change the definitions. The definitions of the state of Israel as a Jewish Zionist country is whether or not they are integrated. That won't change anything in that. But look, you're saying the state of Israel is Jewish, is Zionist, and you keep omitting democratic constantly. No, and democratic. And democratic, okay, because we're also allowed to understand democracy in different ways. Look, let me address what you said earlier. You are presenting a definition of democracy, which, just like you have different definitions of equality, there are different definitions for democracy. Democracy, let me remind you, it's a Greek term. It means the rule of the people. That is the rule of majority. So, what I'm trying, that's the definition of democracy for you? It's also maintaining and protecting minority rights, yes, but it's individual rights. Anybody who wishes to stretch this definition as if the state of Israel needs to be a country that breaks apart its Zionist and Jewish identity, it's a recipe for a collision. If you want, that's where you want to pull. It's a recipe for a collision. And I hope that the line of Mansour Abbas, the state of Israel was established in 1948 and Zionism realized itself. That was the establishment of the country that we both live in. Let's think about the future, find social cohesion, and that's it. I mean, Zionism has realized itself, period. We have a country. That's what he's saying. No, that's not what he's saying. Now, as for democracy, yes, he did bring. You know what? I'd like to say something. I was in the coalition with the Meshutefet, the Joint Arab Slate. You were in opposition with the Meretz Party. That was back in the days that I was with Kahlon. And I was in the Knesset for 4 years. And the Meshutefet, the Joint Arab Party, they had 14 mandates. And the leader of my party between these years was Kahlon. And there were some amazing collaborations. You approved the first major economic program with 15 billion shekels. Exactly. We had some excellent collaboration between the ruling party. It's important to say that Kahlon exerted every possible effort to bring this program about. Yes, we did, and we also had, and Gila Gavniel was also a partner, and I see that you're very familiar with it. And we dealt with this a lot in the Knesset, and we saw some genuine partners in the economy and welfare and society. What has changed? What do I think has changed? I think that since then and since Mansour entered the Knesset and we have a way to compare, something bad has happened at the Joint Arab Party. I have to say that I agree with you. Mansour is like a breath of fresh air, and he talked about civil rights, and something happened, and I'd even want to agree with what you said. We had a very interesting event yesterday. We could see that only member of Knesset, Mansour Abbas, and Yassin Abu Jirat from Ram stood in the swearing in of the Knesset when the national anthem was sung. And in 2015, Ayman Oda and Aida Tuma stood during the national anthem, respected it, and didn't walk out. Yes, true. What has happened? I think it's all because of Mansour Abbas, because he said we're different. We are thinking about the future, like Isawi said, and we want to be integrated. And Ayman Uda and Ahmed Tibi, they weren't like that in previous years. And by the way, Isawi, he's the only one who maintained the same line all the years, and that's a good thing. And you know what? So let's make it brief, because I'd like to allow Iman Khatib Yassim to answer. Perhaps it's not them who change, it's you. Let me tell you why. Because Ayman Ode, he led his party and they received 14, 15 mandates. He recommended Gantz twice and did everything he did in order to achieve one thing: to topple Netanyahu's regime, who passed the nation-state law, the Kamenetz law. And then what did he receive after he recommended Gantz twice? A government with both Netanyahu and Gantz. Gantz took all the votes of Arabs and started a government with Netanyahu. So maybe why these individuals that were mentioned are disappointed with what the Jews did to them in the Knesset. Let me say something very simple. I think, and I have a lot of disagreements with Iman, and she knows that. But over this past year, Bennett and Lapid's government took measures towards the Arab community, thanks to Mansour Abbas. And I said to them, Sawi Frej is insulted. He was a minister in this government. I said this to the Arab MKs: when you vote against Bennett and Lapid's government, you're gonna get Itamar Ben-Gvir as Minister of Homeland Security, and this is exactly what happened. Instead of Omer Bar-Lev remaining in this ministry, that's what happened. You know, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. We had a historic government here with Ra'am and Bennett and Lapid and Gidon Sar, and instead of going with us, instead of understanding the importance of the hour, you know, last time I checked, they toppled the best government we ever had. But we need to be accurate, and Ben-Gvir will soon be in this right-wing nationalist government. And instead of trying to prevent that, they brought that about. They brought this about as a gift to the state of Israel. Maybe we need to be more precise, though, because those who toppled this government are Idit Silman and Nir Orbach and Usama Saadi, and you know that could have provided a safety net, a safety cushion for a few more months. And instead of doing that, they collaborated with the Likud. We saw the collaboration between Ahmed Tibi and the Likud, and this is what sent them. Isawi Fridge as well, who was an excellent minister and Knesset member, they were all sent home. Why? Because of this irresponsible conduct of the Arab Joint Party, and they also hurt themselves because they sent half of their constituency home. You're the only coalition in the world that ever asked the opposition to save it. I've never seen this anywhere else in the world. I'm sorry, there's a problem with his mic. Can you hear me now? Okay. So one last question, because we're almost running out of time. Maybe now. So one last question, because we're running out of time. So this entire discussion is about one simple thing, and I'd like to ask you this question: do you think that still there is a contradiction between what Mansour Abbas said, that he accepts the state of Israel as a Jewish state, and between the fact that you and him define yourselves as Palestinians who are citizens of the state of Israel? Can we live with that and still make the state of Israel exist? Or still have the state of Israel exist? Let me say the following. First of all, our identity is clear, and one can take it away, and nobody intends to do so. And I can talk about myself as a Muslim woman. I'm proud of who I am, and I want this identity, this appearance, these optics to be something legitimate and normal without anybody trying to reject that. I don't think anybody's rejecting you because of your appearance and, you know, the fact that you wear the hijab. Look, I've seen a lot of people rejecting me. I've experienced so many things, but it's not about me. It's not something personal related to Iman. Iman represents some of these people, some of these citizens, and what I want is for us to have equal rights in this country. We've come to terms with this thing that we are citizens in this country. We accept it, but for me, what do you mean you accept it? But it really doesn't appeal to me. Look, I apologize. We can't hear you well. Okay, so you know what? Carry on, because we are running out of time. Look, as long as there's a law, the nation state law, I think that it's one huge barrier that will always keep me clinging, even perhaps too strongly, to my national identity. I feel fine about my national identity, and not just me, all the Arab citizens in Israel. We want to be integrated, we want to be equal citizens, but in the policy up there, okay, what do you mean by integrating? Natsava Etzni says that to be integrated means to accept the rules of the game, and so does a member of Knesset Merav Ben Mari. But who decides on them? Who determines? I mean, if if these rules of the game from the outset exclude me because of my national identity, then I cannot accept them. The question is, what are the rules of the game? For me, the rules of the game, this means that I am a first-rate citizen and I deserve everything that any other Jewish citizen in this country deserves. For me, this is what I mean by equal citizenship, and I cannot compromise on anything else. Okay, I'd like to thank you. Our time is up, and I'd like to use your mic because my mic isn't working very well. And I'd like to conclude in one sentence, if I may. So first of all, there's something very interesting in this panel, and I think that's the most important thing, that both me and Minister Isawi Frej, even though we're both Arab, Palestinian, citizens of the State of Israel, we're allowed to disagree. Minister Frej, that's something positive, right? That's one thing. Another thing, I think that the most important thing in this question, in this panel, is the fact that it is held, that it exists once we listen to each other, once Palestinians are speaking with Israelis, Jews and Arabs are speaking. This is the secret to the existence of this country, to listen to the other, to speak to each other, and I think that's the best way to conclude this panel. I'd like to thank all of you: Attorney Nadav Etzny, Member of Knesset Merav Ben-Ari, Minister Isawi Frej, Member of Knesset Iman Khatib Yassin, and I'd like to thank all of you as well. Thank you very much.